We are looking at the attitude for property success. And this was something that Lee completely changed my viewpoint on things. I just presumed in life you learnt new things and then you were successful. So, you know, you went to school, you learnt stuff. For me, I had to take my 11 plus, and then I went to a secondary school, and then I learnt stuff and I passed exams, and then I went to uni and I learnt stuff, and then I went to a job and I learnt stuff. But it never really quite seemed to be enough for some reason. And Lee was the pivot of me understanding that we can know a huge amount of stuff, but it's actually how we implement it and what our mindset is. And inherently, the main part of that is our attitude. And I had no idea that everyone thought attitude was different, all of these kind of things, which I know we're going to come on to in a minute. So I'm really excited to have Lee on here today to do an hour on this mindset part. And today it's attitude for property success. So Lee, please, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to anyone who hasn't come across you yet. This is something that we do every month. And let them know about yourself, please.
Sure. Hello, everyone. So my name is Lee Roebeck, and I refer to myself as an abundance coach, but my wheelhouse is essentially mindset, as Emma's just stated. And what is it that I do? So I help entrepreneurs remove money blocks and attract clients easily by helping them upgrade their mindset. Now, mindset is critical. Emma's heard this before, but my mentor, the legendary Bob Proctor, used to say that success is 5% strategy, 95% mindset. You know, people get hung up with strategy, but until your mindset is tuned correctly for the property goals or the level of income that you're striving towards, until your mindset is tuned correctly for that, I promise you it's not going to happen. So mindset is absolutely critical, and I'll qualify that before we jump into it, Emma. You can have two people selling the same product, working in the same marketplace, serving the same demographic, working for the same sales manager. One is absolutely killing it, another one's struggling to get by. What's the difference, right? It's in mindset. So that's what I do, and I'm hoping you get some real good value from tuning into this conversation here today.
That is so true, Lee. And in fact, this week I'm doing lots of coaching for property investors, budding property investors, and all of them have bought into a course, for instance. And they all have, so let's say there's 10 courses. They've all got access to those 10 courses. They've all got access to the community. They've all got access to various places where they can ask questions. And some of them come on and have achieved this, they've achieved that, they're doing this, they're doing that, they're out there, they're grasping everything. And there are others who might be kind of like almost like rabbit in headlights and just not quite sure where to go, what to do. They're kind of overwhelmed. And then you got another camp who kind of literally blame everything. You know, they blame WhatsApp, they blame Facebook, they blame, their next door, whatever it takes. And it's so interesting to see these kind of differences when inherently they all handed over the money, they all got the same information, and then they're just doing it so differently. It's something that's really I find quite extraordinary, and makes me therefore sort of kind of look back. So let's jump into it, Lee. I mean, tell us a bit more about what attitude is, I suppose.
So attitude is essentially everything about you. Earl Nightingale used to call attitude the magic word. And it truly is a magic word when you understand what attitude is. Now, you might be similar to me in this regard, where I used to think that attitude was just, if somebody kind of had a positive way of showing up, and, if they had a spring in their step, if they were always, working to get things right, or, I thought that, that person had a good attitude. But you can have the most positive attitude with regards to what I've just spoken about. But if you come in from lack and limitation in terms of your money mindset, you come in from a negative mental attitude, right? Attitude is all encompassing. And to really break it down and explain what attitude is, Emma, as you know, attitude is a composite of your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. I'll say that again. Attitude is a composite. So it's all three brought together of your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. My mentor, when he spoke about attitude, he said, if you go to someone's house and they serve you a slice of cake with a cup of tea, and that cake is really good, it's fluffy, it's the best cake you've ever tasted, you wouldn't say, that's great spice, or, I love the flour you used in this cake, or no, you say to them, this is great cake. And similarly, attitude shows up on the outside, and people will say, that person has a good attitude, but it's a composite of your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. And when all three of those are congruent, or what we could also say is in integrity. Now, I'll go a step further to explain attitude. It is your thoughts, feelings, and actions, yes. But you have an attitude, Emma, to this conversation right now. You have an attitude to the way you started your day this morning. You've got an attitude to the next coaching session you're going into. You've got an attitude to your daughter. You've got an attitude to your spouse. You've got an attitude, attitude is all encompassing. It's not as simple as just, showing up in a positive way. We've got an attitude to the way we study, to our learning and development. We've got an attitude to our hygiene. It's all encompassing, if I can put it that way. And it controls every area of your life. And like Earl Nightingale said, it truly is the magic word. It is the magic word.
Yeah, amazing. And that, for me, was just such a revelation, knowing that it was these kind of parts, so what you think, what you feel, and what you do. So I kind of, when I think back to before I met you, so for instance, I'd go to a letting agent and I'm looking, I'm new in property and I'm looking for a rent to rent, and I would walk into the letting agent and I'd look, so my actions would look really positive. Well, one, I'd walked in there and I would always be smiley, but I'd be thinking they're never going to give me anything. They're never going to want to work with me. They think I've got nothing, because I felt I had nothing, financially. I felt I had nothing to offer. And then, of course, I'm feeling like, I'm feeling quite down about it. I'm feeling that they're just all kind of that side of things were negative. And that's what I didn't understand. I thought that because I was there turning up and smiley and shaking hands and being confident, that it would all be okay. And it wasn't until you kind of pointed these things out that I was kind of like, wow. And even now, as you say, this attitude here, I've been looking at you and seeing, wow, the information that Lee's telling me, that's really interesting. And I'm really enjoying it. Whereas before I would have been thinking, I wonder what's that's on the cupboard, and wonder, and I wouldn't be, didn't have control of these thoughts and therefore my feelings. So it is, it's absolutely, so huge. So how would, because a lot of this, isn't it, is all about being aware. And I think, a lot of times we're just not aware, are we, at all? How would you kind of allow people to start being that bit more aware of what's going on in, out, around?
So awareness is key, as you know, and you've learned to understand over the past couple of years, Emma. All of the problems in the world have at their source or at their foundation ignorance. And, if you're talking lack of poverty, if you're talking, corrupt governments, issues with businesses not growing, it's all based on ignorance, right? Because the thing is, as we know more and as we grow our awareness, we obviously do better, right? You shared something in terms of going and seeing these property investors and having this internal dialogue within yourself, right, Emma, that wasn't serving the results that you were hoping to achieve. And I just want to pop a slide on a PowerPoint slide here to explain to everyone how this works. And if you tune in via Facebook, you'll see the PowerPoint on your screen. And for everybody tuning in on Clubhouse, I'm going to try and explain this. So on the screen here, we've got an image of the mind, or it's an image that I was introduced to by my mentor, Bob. And this image we call the stick person. The top circle, the big circle, is the mind. So I want you to picture this. If you're on Clubhouse, picture a big circle and a small line and a smaller circle at the bottom with arms and legs coming off at the bottom circle. And the big top circle, that's the mind. The mind has a horizontal line down the middle, and that line divides the conscious, the subconscious, and the small circle with the arms and the legs, that's the body, of course. Now, here's this thinking power that flows into you all the time. And I promise you, it never stops. If you don't believe me, go and sit in a chair, try and calm yourself, and really get into a really good state and try and clear thoughts from your mind. You'll find ideas just pop in over and over and over, right? That's because this thinking power never stops. And when it flows in, it just is. It's neither negative or positive. You make it what it is by virtue of the thoughts you think. So remember, I said your attitude is your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions, but it starts up there with your thoughts. Now, those thoughts you think, like Emma, if you're thinking, who am I to even come and propose to manage these people's property? Or, they're going to figure I don't know so much. Or, that imposter syndrome, right? That we always shows up. Right?
Yeah, it does seem to keep cropping up. And for so many, that's the thing. It's not just us, is it? It's so many people. We all have it in one way, shape, or form.
Because when you set a big property goal, when you set something new, a level of income, you're gonna have to grow, and you're gonna have to become a new person, right? So you're gonna have to think in a new way. You're gonna have to act in a new way. You're gonna have to feel in a new way. Now, those thoughts you think on a conscious thinking level, so up there on the top half of the mind, those thoughts are sent out into the universe, and not only is it sent out, but it's also impressed upon your emotional mind. And I'll qualify this. You could be walking down the street in Oxford Street in London, doing some shopping, and you're thinking about your mum over in Liverpool. And the next minute, she phones you. Now, were you picking up, was she thinking about you and you picked that up? Or were you thinking about her and that's what triggered her to phone you? We've all experienced something like that, right? It's like, and then you pick up the phone and you won't believe I was just thinking about you. Thoughts are omnipresent. They are literally omnipresent. So not only do you send it out, and that property investor or that property owner that you're approaching, they might not be able to articulate the thoughts that you're sending out in terms of, I'm a newbie at this, or, I don't really know what I'm doing, or, I'm hoping, or I don't think they're going to, get me to manage their property or, to work with me. Those thoughts, the person on the other end of it, they might not be able to articulate what you send in, but I promise you they can feel it and they can pick it up. And this is what I'm going to show you in terms of attitude. Now, the thoughts cause your feelings. There's no getting around that. Our thoughts create our feelings in the emotional mind. Those feelings are also sent out into the universe. But not only that, it's impressed on your physical body down there. And that's what moves your body into action. And the action obviously creates results. So what is attitude? Here we go. Bingo. 1, 2, 3. Your attitude is a composite of your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. But it's got to be congruent. So when you walk into that estate agent's office, you want to walk in there with an attitude like they'll be crazy not to work with me. I've got so much value to bring, to the table here. And, I'm going to get them to work with me. You got to walk in with a firm attitude. And I think we all know confidence in how you show up in terms of your energy or your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. That really sets people apart. You can see somebody that walks in with confidence. It's their attitude. So I just wanted to show this in relation to making the sale or signing that contract, Emma. And that's why I thought I'd just bring this up. So here we go. On a thought level, you're saying to the prospect or the person you're speaking to, the landlord or the property owner, I want to help you. I know I can help you get a great return on your property or on your investment. And, I think this is a good fit. You're saying that on a conscious level, but on a subconscious level, you're thinking or you're feeling, I need to make this sale. Or they're going to figure out, that I don't really know much about the property industry. But what you're doing is you're sending an incongruent message, or you're sending what's called a double binding. Psychologists refer to this as a double binding message. I'm going to help you. I want to help you. But down here, because imposter syndrome has got a firm hold on you, your feeling is, they're going to think, who the hell is this person? They don't know what they... And that double binding message you send in, they can pick it up, I promise you. And that's why on a material level, on a physical level, the sale breaks down. We want to understand attitude. We want to understand how it's literally affecting every area of our lives, Emma, so that we can go in, approach everything with the right attitude. And obviously your results improve. So
I suppose I remember sort of thinking that this was kind of probably a little bit kooky, and I was kind of like, having that kind of negative attitude and sort of, but when I started sort of thinking it through and really trying to understand it, it was, the times when I know I have got a poor attitude, and one of them was definitely walking into a letting agent. I had this kind of feeling that I lacked in multiple ways. You mentioned a few of them. I felt that I lacked the knowledge at that stage. I was right at the beginning of my property career. I also had got to the stage where I really didn't have a lot of money. I'd really invested everything into, into courses and stuff like that. So again, I had this kind of lack. And also, when you walk into a letting agent, they don't necessarily treat you that well. They're not that excited to see you, because generally tenants, which is what you generally are when you walk into a letting agent, can be quite problematic. And so they may be sort of feeling like that. And therefore the talk and the chats that I would have with them, it never felt very warm and very like it was going in the right direction. And then when you kind of on the transverse side of things, think of, other scenarios, or for instance, now when I'm talking to other, like coaching for something, I've been through a lot of training. I've now got a lot of experience. I've done a whole host of things. I'm totally different. And so I feel like really great about that. And I feel a connectivity. Now, of course, some people I might not connect with, but the majority of people, it feels like a really positive experience. And it's really great. Whereas it's very interesting. You can create it. And there are times now that when I still meet people that are, let's say, far further ahead than me in property, I could feel like I don't have the knowledge, I don't have as much experience of them, but I'm now able to just put those things aside because I'm thinking differently, I'm feeling differently about it, and I'm therefore, you know, creating a different thing, even though they're basically the same feelings that I had, you know, all those years ago with those letting agents. So yeah, it's been a total kind of a game changer. And you can actually see people, can't you? You can almost, as you're talking, and especially for you in where you're working, like a lot of people, and not always, will say things and it's kind of like, oh, I can really, you know, oh, like I'm rubbish at that, or I'm this and I'm that, and you can suddenly sort of hear it. So yeah, I find it absolutely incredible, really, to know, and certainly this attitude being called the magic word, that was a pivotal moment for me in learning that. So, you know, getting on, how do we move forward with this? Because, you know, for me, I was able to take action. I'm pretty good at kind of going forward, but how do we control that? I mean, we call it in our family the black dog saying to you, you're not good enough, you don't know, you haven't got that. You know, how can we overcome these things?
Emma, you know, that process is not just, you know, as straightforward as we'd like to think. You know, you got to develop or you've got to develop a level of mental toughness that the masses don't have. And the only way to really get there is through effective mindset coaching. And that's the honest truth. You know, we've got to learn to take control of our mindset. I'll give you another quick example. Some of you might relate to this. If part of your strategy is to prospect or reach out to landlords or letting agents, 5 of them a day or 25 a week, whatever the number is for you. And let's say you're reaching your strategy, you're using LinkedIn or you're using Facebook or, you know, whatever social media platform you're using, or maybe you're picking up the phone. Often when we send that message, you got to be very, very aware of the attitude, that the energy you're projecting when you send that message. Often we're saying, you know, I'm really going to bother this person. You know, this person, I'm going to, you know, they're not going to be happy with this message, or they're going to ignore me, or whatever it is. I promise you, I've tested this. It works. When you send in your prospecting message on a daily basis, you want to go in with the thoughts and the feelings around the idea of, you know, maybe it's Jane Adams you're reaching out. Jane is so happy to hear from me, and she engages. You know, we've hopped onto a call and we've had a really good conversation, and she sees how I can help her. You know, and yes, you know, initially it might feel like you're doing mental sit-ups, but if you continue doing it, so this is now the mindset work, right? If you continue doing it and you continue doing it, like anything else, it will become habitual for you to think that way. And that's how you master it. You know, you gotta understand mindset, and you've got to get into some sort of system that's going to allow you to develop this mental toughness. And then, you know, you want to be aware, super aware of what you're thinking when you are moving into action. Because if your thinking and your feeling is misaligned with the results you want, that action is not going to amount to much.
And so with these thoughts, these feelings, and these actions, that basically is attitude, because that was a big surprise for me. And I know you've done this with me, and I've done it with people that I've coached or mentored, is I literally ask them, what does attitude, you know, what attitude do you have, or things like that. And everyone has got a different kind of view, don't they? They say things like positive attitude. And so that's what I love when we break it down into these kind of 3 key areas. But then what I like is to look at the results. So exactly as you were showing, when you get those results that you're getting. Now, some things, and again, it's in all parts of your life, as you've said, and sometimes you'll get things that just work really well. I don't know, you might have a great relationship with a friend, or you might have deals that are going really well, or you might have this great funnel of properties coming to you. But then there'll be something that you're not getting the results that you want. So maybe you're not getting the funding for those deals, or maybe you really struggle with the networking. You arrive and it's just not exactly how you want it to be. And those, to me, are kind of these results. And when you're not getting the results, which is what you always taught me, is, well, what part of this kind of composite is it that you need to work on? So I know for me, it was always very much the actions seem to be, I seem to be doing the correct actions, it would seem. So then I would go to the next thing. Okay, well, what am I thinking about this situation? How am I feeling about this situation? And then actually breaking it down, because where I always felt was I felt really helpless, which is obviously not a good place to be, because I didn't think I had control. I wasn't getting the results and I didn't know which way to go. Whereas now suddenly you gave me this kind of this process to look at each part and each area, and to then start working on that and thinking about that. And as you've said, it's then looking at how we then control that, which is not that easy. But yeah, so that was, I was just sort of carrying on from that. Okay, so so any more around this attitude and how we can, move it forward and be able to control it?
I think maybe the best way to explain more about attitude and how to control it, I'm going to tell you a story now. And Emma, I know you've heard this story many, many times, but there's someone online here with us that might not have heard this story. And I think it's really powerful in communicating how you can control your attitude regardless of what's happening on the outside. And when you develop that ability, so we're talking about this mental toughness, that's when you can apply it to your business. You can apply it to your relationships. You can apply it to that rejection, rejection after rejection after rejection that you get from your prospecting. So the story is on the 13th of January, 2019. So we're going back a few years now. I was hijacked. I was carjacked here in South Africa. And I know in the UK, that doesn't happen very often. But here in South Africa, with regards to crime, it's pretty rampant. And it was a Sunday afternoon at about 2:15. And it happened at a shopping center close to where I stay. I pulled into the parking lot there and I hopped out to look through the windows of a furniture store. I was looking at some dining tables. And the next minute, this gray Volkswagen Golf pulls into the parking lot with blue lights on the dashboard, flashing lights. So initially I thought, unmarked police vehicle, but instantly, my gut told me something's not kosher here, something's not right. So anyway, the next thing that happened was as they pulled in, they rolled down the passenger side window, and the driver said to me out of the window, he said, we just got a call that someone's trying to break into one of the stores here. And the next minute, the passenger in front and the passenger behind the driver both jumped out with firearms in their hand, one coming to me from the left front and the other from the right-hand side. So anyway, the guy from the left front comes up to me and he starts tapping my pockets. And he says to me, "Where's your car keys?" And I show him, in the right pocket. Here's my keys. And he takes the keys out of my pocket, and then these two guys proceed to bundle me into the boot, into the trunk of the car I was driving that Sunday afternoon. Now, I'm 6.5 foot tall, and I'm above average height. That Sunday afternoon, I was driving a little Volkswagen Polo. And these guys literally bundled me into the boot of that car. Now, to be honest with you, the first 10 minutes was tough. Like, to control my attitude, it was tough. Like, just to gain control of those thoughts, right, Emma, and calm myself. But eventually, 10 minutes later, they transferred me to their car, into the trunk, into the boot of their car, and at least there was a bit more leg room in that bigger vehicle. But what started happening in that car, ideas around mindset started playing on the screen of my mind, which, like you have been, Emma, I've been internalizing for many years. And it was almost like the subconscious mind handed these ideas to me at my moment of need. And, I've been internalizing it for years because you can't give what you don't have. I've got to become a product of the product. So the very first thing that came to mind lying in the boot of that car is I run a 6-month coaching program called Thinking into Results. And lesson 9 in this mindset program is a lesson on what we're talking about today. It's on attitude. And in that video of that lesson, Bob Proctor, he talks about a man by the name of Viktor Frankl. Now, some of you might be familiar or have heard the name Viktor Frankl. He invented logotherapy, or he was referred to as the third wave of Viennese psychiatry. I think it was Alfred Adler, Sigmund Freud, and then Viktor Frankl. But Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist. He spent the war years in Auschwitz, in a Nazi concentration camp. He spent years there. He's seen his wife murdered, his family murdered. And he said, so remember, I'm laying in the boot of this car. This plays in my mind. Viktor Frankl said that regardless of the intellectual and the physical abuse that they subjected him to in that concentration camp, he said he could still choose to hold a positive picture on the screen of his mind. Now, we all know what happened in those concentration camps. It was extreme what they were facing on a daily basis. And here's this man, he says your ability to think. What he was also saying was your ability to control your attitude was the last of human freedoms. And he said no one could cause him to think anything he didn't want to think. He could still choose to hold a positive picture on the screen of his mind. Now, I'm lying in this trunk and this story plays in my mind and I'm thinking, Emma, gosh, this is a tough spot you find yourself in, Lee. But relative to what that man went through, this is probably a walk in the park. And if he could choose to hold a positive picture on the screen of his mind, surely you can try. So that was very handy, that one of the first things that came up. The second thing that came to mind lying in this boot, and this is also a strategy to control your attitude. If you're sitting there with a pen and a notepad, I want you to write these 3 steps, these 3 next ideas down, especially if you're going through something challenging or something that's testing you. There's a speaker from the West Coast of America by the name of Michael Bernard Beckwith. He's out in California. And he has this 3-step approach for anything negative you might be going through. Step number 1, so I'm lying in the boot. Step number 1 is it is what it is. Accept it. It's either going to control you or you're going to control it, at least from a mental perspective. So step 1, it is what it is. Accept it. I mean, what was I really going to do, right? 4 armed men. I was unarmed. Very early on in that experience, I gave it over to this higher power, to the universe, and I said, Dad, I accept the outcome. Whether I make it out of this alive or dead, I accept the outcome because you're in control. So that's step 1. Step number 2 is harvest the good. There's good in everything. If you're looking for it, you're going to find it. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, gosh, Lee, what was the good in that? Like, really? Come on. Because I was looking for it, I found it. My 4-year-old son is 9 now. He was 4 in 2019. He was with me that weekend, and Emma, as you know, he could so easily have been, because I've told Emma the story many times. He could so easily have been with me at 2:15 on that Sunday afternoon. Thank goodness he was at home and he was safe. That was some good I could harvest immediately. My sister was supposed to come out with me to look at these tables. Thank goodness she didn't make it. She was at home. She was safe. So that was something immediately I could start celebrating. Lying in that boot. And the third step is forgive all the rest. Forgive means to let go of completely. Abandon. Someone's not delivered on something they've promised you, and it's really getting to you. Let it go. Somebody's done you in business, or really a relationship that's really hurt you. Just let it go. I mean, we know all of the great religions talk about forgiveness. Any complete philosophy of success will talk about the need to release this negative emotion, the forgiveness. It's not for the other person or to let them off the hook, but it's to free yourself, right? And I think we all know this. Because these 3 steps played in my mind, lying in that boot, I started praying for these guys. I prayed for their parents. I prayed for their kids. I prayed that they'd find a way to make it out of that sort of lifestyle, to make a meaningful difference in the world. Now, I'm not sharing that with you to impress you, but rather to impress upon you that regardless of what you are going through, no one can control your attitude. 2 things, only 2 things that you have complete control over. It's your attitude and your ability to think. And remember, your attitude starts with your thinking. Now, eventually they let me go 3 hours later. And behind one of the big hospitals here in Johannesburg. And when they let me go, I phoned a family member, Keenan, to come and fetch me. And when he got there, he looked at me and he said, "Gee whiz, I cannot believe how calm you are." And there's just one other thing that I want to share with you, and it's probably the reason I was as calm as Keenan seemed, was I was part of a group of about 25 mindset coaches and speakers from all around the world. And we had what was called a Serenity Challenge, a 90-day Serenity Challenge, where we were rewriting a little chapter called Serenity from a book that some of you might be familiar with, a book called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. If you don't have that book and you're a prolific reader, that is a classic. You want to get yourself a copy. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. And this 90-day Serenity Challenge went like this. We meet on Zoom every day, and we were rewriting the chapter together. And if you get to day 18 and you skip a day, you got to start all the way back at day 1 again. The goal is obviously to get to day 90. So I started with this group on the 24th of October, 2018. So by the 13th of January, 2019, when this incident happened that I'm telling you about, I've been impressing ideas around serenity, calmness, equanimity, this self-control. I've been impressing it on my subconscious mind for 79 days. And that's probably the reason I was as calm as Keenan seemed. Now, I want you to think about this. These 3 ideas that I've just shared with you had me mentally spiraling up in the trunk of that car. Now, imagine if I never had those 3 mental tools, I'd have been spiraling down and I'd have jumped out of the back of that hospital an absolute emotional wreck. Does mindset coaching work? There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that proper elite level mindset coaching definitely does work. That goes to the paradigm, to the subconscious paradigm. It's no rah-rah motivation. We get you up today and you're down tomorrow again. Proper elite level mindset coaching regulates your attitude. And like, we've been talking about, Emma, It regulates your attitude because you've got an attitude to every single thing. And when you develop this mental toughness, you then learn how to form the habit of regulating your attitude to get what it is that you want, or to shift those results instead of letting the results control you. So why am I telling you this story? I think I prefaced it in terms of attitude is so key to your success. And, this is an extreme situation I went through. Viktor Frankl being in that concentration camp, that's probably the most unimaginable situation. And he could regulate his attitude there, and I could regulate my attitude going through this experience. And, in terms of your business, in terms of the goal that you're striving towards right now, you're going to come up against fear. You're going to come up against rejection. If your goal is big enough, that's part of the process. But how you start shifting your results is by regulating your attitude. And that's why I thought I'd throw the story in and tell you the story. Emma.
Yeah, Lee, I mean, I know it is an extraordinary story from so many angles. And, you always have to imagine how you would react. And even now with all, I feel like I've done quite a lot of mindset work, but, that is really massive. It was almost, just having to have this acceptance, but having, as you say, those kind of three things that you are following through. And I know for you post that, so many things did happen for you, because like now you're able to share that story, and it's really inspirational for so many people to know that no matter what the circumstances, we don't have to go into a concentration camp, we don't have to be thrown in the boot of a car. We do have control. And I think exactly as I mentioned earlier, for me, I felt very out of control and like I had no choices. Whereas now when I'm not getting the results that I want, I always think I've got control of that. I don't always know how to change it or what to do, but I know that it's within me. I know that I've got that path. And there's another one that I really like. I don't know the exact thing or who said it, but something about wherever you are right now is exactly where you should be. And that kind of makes me feel like sometimes like, oh, thank goodness for that. Okay, so I'm in the right place now and things will come to me. And I do find the more you kind of release to that. So one of the big things that you really pushed on me is again, this having this faith, that knowing that, you will be able to move through it. So when you're there thinking, what am I thinking? How am I feeling? What am I doing? It's knowing that you've got to have the faith to know that you will get there and things will come to you. And the more that I kind of genuinely believed that I would be able to move forward, then suddenly all these things tend to come to you. They tend to crop up. So I know within this last week, I'll be really honest with you, had a little bit of a meltdown. Somebody said something to me and it hit a nerve. And I kind of, all the things that perhaps hadn't happened, I got very weepy. There was just lots of things going on. But I just thought, you know what? I've got control of this. I can do this, and again, I looked at the results. Well, what is it exactly that I don't want to do? I did a bit of journaling. Wow, that brought out a few tears. There's a whole host of things that was kind of going on. But there was no way in there that I didn't think I'm gonna find a solution. I just knew it. I just clearly, there needed to be a release. I needed to let some things go. I needed to actually look at what was actually happening. Why was it happening? I think I wasn't really looking at what I was thinking, what I was feeling. And perhaps also I was denying that I maybe wasn't getting things done around some of these kind of property deals, the way I run my business. So I literally had these kind of 2 days of, really deep diving into that. And then literally within the last, so we're only Tuesday now. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, during this last few days, just can't believe how different things can be. I went to the, and Thursday night, Friday, I was going to a big networking, and it was actually outside of property. And that's always quite exciting, meeting people that don't know anything about property, or know less maybe. But the night before, my daughter had been really unwell and had kept me up most of the night. And there was the knife edge where I thought, I'm so exhausted, I don't think I can go. I literally had barely any sleep. But I thought, no, I know that this is going to be good for me today. So I just thought I'm going to, go from it within. And I did. And I went. And that networking was so awesome. It literally rose me above anything. Then we all got into a group over the weekend, and we were all supporting each other. And then yesterday I had another sort of webinar that I went on, and it blew my mind. It basically, I feel it gave me all those things that I'd been needing to pull it together. I had so many things that were going well, but I needed something to bring it together. I needed this kind of business strategy that had a core to it. And I got it last night. So it was kind of like I just knew. So I could have completely fallen apart last week and gone, oh, I'm terrible, I'm useless, I can't do this, I can't do that. But I just thought, no, what would Lee do? What would he advise? And that enables you to get through. And that's been such a powerful journey. Nothing as extreme, obviously, as being in the back of a trunk. I'm not sure I would have been the same. But again, those 2 days could have been very pivotal. As you know, Lee, I get to this stage of the year and I get an absolute panic because I haven't achieved these enormous goals that I've set myself. And there's only 3 months left. And I start getting this panic, and that's how it all kind of cropped up. But actually, you just got to take that step back, haven't you? And you've got to look at those tools that you've got. And certainly, wow, what you've said there is just a massive toolbox of things that you can sort of, and it's almost like blindsiding yourself almost, but being, so it's like, what are these things? I have to accept things. What is the good there, and forgive all the rest, so to speak. So yeah, I absolutely love that. And one final thing that I also got from you that you'll be very proud of me, Lee, I've really been using a lot, is you talked about this third thing from Michael Bernard Beckwith, is this forgiveness. And I do think I hold a lot of blame of myself, of so many things. So I'm really doing a lot of forgiveness, and it's called I can't even say it. Is it the Ho'oponopono? Ho'oponopono. I can never say it. But anyway, it's basically where you say, in want of a better description, you basically say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. And I've been doing that to myself, and I've been doing it to body parts, I've been doing it to other people. I've literally been going out there and just doing this massive forgiveness, and it's really incredibly powerful. So yeah, I do feel this kind of attitude thing is, is it the, do you think everything else in mindset comes into that attitude?
I think it's one of the core ideas around mindset, because we've got to understand you're a tri-human being, right? You think intellectually, you exist on an emotional level, so there's a feeling. And then obviously we live in a physical body, you correspond with the physical world. And attitude takes into consideration all 3 planes of understanding. Now, there's something key that you shared there, Emma, in relation to attitude that I'd just like to comment on. If we didn't do as well as we should have done with a project a year ago, or you beating yourself up about a failed relationship, or maybe a business that failed, or something that you didn't take full advantage of, that is one of the worst things you can do, because the thing is, you got to let the dead bury the dead. You done the very best you could at that moment with your level of awareness. And I mean, how is it going to serve you to have any sort of guilt? You also mentioned, getting to this part of the year and you've got 1 quarter left, right? We've got 90 days left for 20, or less than 90 now, but more or less 90 days, October, November, December, to finish 2023 strong. And if you're sitting there and you're beating yourself up about how far you are from your goal, you're actually taking yourself further away from it, because this is attitude, right? The thing is, you want to show up as that person. You want to feel like that person. You want to think like that person. This is the attitude, right? And initially, because the results is not yet reflecting it, but if you're thinking and feeling like that person, the results has to shift on the outside over time. And if we're rehashing the mistakes we've made, if we're getting caught up in an attitude of getting hard on ourselves and down on ourselves, now, I'm not saying, handle it in a lackadaisical way, being casual about it. Like, if you're listening to this now, you want to finish 2023 strong. As I'm saying this to you, I'm saying it to myself as well, because how we finish this year is how we're going to start 2024. And you want to make sure that you really, you've got your foot on the gas. But what happened last month, previous quarter, there's nothing you can do about it. Let the dead bury the dead. Let's just be from this moment. What's the better attitude that's going to help me finish the year strong? And what can I do to maybe accomplish these goals in this next 3 months? And, Emma, if you don't hit it by the end of this year, I think, just give yourself another extension on it. If you keep focusing on it, eventually it's going to happen. But you've got to maintain the focus and the correct attitude towards achieving that.
I love it. I love it, Lee. Well, that's incredibly powerful. And I really appreciate you kind of being here and sharing all of this. So look, you have, been transformative, certainly in my journey. So if people want to find out a little bit more about you, I think you've got something on this week, haven't you? So I've popped in a link at the top of Clubhouse, and obviously we'll put that in. So this will also be on, it's on Facebook Live at the moment, and then also it will be on YouTube, hopefully this afternoon, if not by tomorrow morning. So tell us a bit more how people can maybe come and find you.
So I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook and all the major platforms. But if what I shared with you today really resonated with you, or what Emma and I have spoken about resonated with you in terms of attitude, I'd like to invite you to a webinar that's happening next Thursday. The webinar is called Face Your Fears and Achieve Any Goal. And it's an hour-long webinar where we really go deep with, your attitude towards the goal that you're working towards, your attitude towards fear, because like I said earlier, if you're really stretching and you're going after a big, hairy, audacious goal, right, the BHAG, fear is a natural preamble, and you want to check your attitude around fear. So that's what we're going to get into next week. I've delivered this particular presentation on some of the biggest stages. I delivered it at BNI's Global Convention, where there were 8,500 registrants, and it's always landed really well. It's a powerful presentation. And I promise you this much, you join us for this webinar, your thinking will never be the same afterwards in terms of how to set goals, in terms of overcoming fear when it strikes so that it does not sabotage your success. And what we're talking about now, I think the third thing that I'm really going to go deep with is how to control your thoughts regardless of what's happening on the outside. So, if this attitude discussion has resonated with you, I'd like to personally invite you to the webinar I'm having next week. I think it's the 19th of October. Click on the link here in Clubhouse, click on the link in Facebook or on YouTube, and I look forward to seeing you there.
Fantastic. Well, as I say, Lee, thank you so much for making the time to be here. We really, really, appreciate you being there. I'm just going to double check this link because that one wasn't working. Okay, perfect. We've got the correct link in there now. Fantastic. So yeah, thank you so much, and yeah, take care, and yeah, do jump on that webinar and help overcome your fears. So yeah, thanks again, Lee, and do take care. Have a great month.
Emma, enjoy the rest of your day. Chat soon.
Thank you very much.